Former President Donald Trump took center stage as he addressed House Republicans during a high-profile event at the Trump Kennedy Center, delivering remarks that immediately drew attention across Washington and beyond. The appearance signaled more than just a routine political gathering. It underscored Trump's continued influence over the Republican Party and his ability to command the spotlight in a rapidly evolving political landscape. Speaking to GOP lawmakers, Trump emphasized party unity, electoral strategy, and what he described as the urgent need to reclaim American leadership. His message resonated with many in the room, reinforcing his role as a dominant figure shaping the party's direction ahead of critical legislative battles and upcoming elections. The setting itself added symbolism, blending political legacy with a moment of renewed momentum for Trump within Republican circles. The event comes at a pivotal time for House Republicans, who face internal divisions, policy standoffs, and mounting pressure from voters. Trump's presence served as both a rallying point and a reminder of the political energy he continues to generate among the GOP base. Supporters view his leadership as essential for mobilizing voters and advancing conservative priorities, while critics argue his influence deepens polarization within Congress. Trump's address also highlighted the broader question looming over American politics. How much power does a former president wield once out of office? As he outlined his vision and challenged Republicans to stay focused and disciplined, it became clear that Trump is not stepping away from the political stage. Instead, he is actively shaping the conversation, setting expectations, and positioning himself at the center of the party's future. Whether seen as a unifying force or a controversial figure, Trump's appearance ensured one thing: the political spotlight remains firmly on him. Former President Donald Trump's appearance at the Trump Kennedy Center to address House Republicans marked a defining political moment, one that underscored his enduring grip on the Republican Party and his continued relevance in Washington's power dynamics. Though no longer in the Oval Office, Trump's presence alone was enough to command attention, set the tone, and reassert his role as a central force shaping GOP strategy and identity. The event was more than a speech, it was a signal. At a time when House Republicans face narrow majorities, internal disagreements, and intense scrutiny from voters, Trump's address served as both a rallying cry and a strategic recalibration. His remarks reflected familiar themes: party unity, strength, loyalty, and the need to confront Democratic leadership. But they were also carefully framed for a Republican caucus navigating legislative gridlock and an increasingly polarized electorate. Trump opened by emphasizing unity, a message that resonated amid ongoing divisions within the House GOP. With ideological rifts between establishment conservatives and more populist factions, Trump positioned himself as a unifying figure capable of bridging those gaps. He praised lawmakers who, in his view, stood firm against Democratic policies, while warning against internal conflict that could weaken the party's leverage. The subtext was clear: Republican success depends on discipline and alignment around shared goals. The former president also focused heavily on electoral strategy. As upcoming elections loom large, Trump urged House Republicans to stay focused on messaging that appeals to working-class voters, suburban families, and disaffected independents. He framed the political moment as a crossroads, arguing that Republicans have an opportunity to reclaim public trust by emphasizing economic stability, border security, and public safety. His language echoed campaign-style rhetoric, reinforcing speculation about his own political ambitions while simultaneously energizing GOP lawmakers. The venue itself, the Trump Kennedy Center, added symbolic weight to the occasion. By hosting House Republicans in a setting tied to both his brand and political legacy, Trump reinforced the idea that his influence extends beyond formal office. The optics suggested continuity rather than departure, reminding attendees and observers alike that Trump remains deeply embedded in the party's institutional and cultural framework. Trump's address also reflected a broader effort to reassert control over the Republican narrative in Congress. With policy debates ranging from government spending to foreign aid and national security, Trump urged Republicans to resist compromise he characterized as weakness. He framed legislative battles as moral struggles, positioning the GOP as defenders of American values against what he described as government overreach and failed leadership. Reactions within the room reportedly ranged from enthusiastic applause to cautious attentiveness. For many House Republicans, Trump remains a powerful political asset, one capable of mobilizing voters, fundraising, and dominating media coverage. Aligning with him can energize the base and solidify support in primary contests. At the same time, some lawmakers remain wary, concerned about the electoral risks associated with Trump's polarizing reputation. His address did little to resolve that tension, but it reinforced a reality many cannot ignore. Trump's voice still matters. Outside the event, the political response was swift. Supporters hailed the address as evidence of strong leadership and renewed momentum for the GOP. Critics, however, argued that Trump's continued dominance limits the party's ability to expand its appeal. The speech reignited debates about whether Republicans are moving forward or remaining tethered to a single figure whose influence continues to shape every major decision. What made Trump's remarks particularly significant was their timing. House Republicans are operating in a high-stakes environment, facing legislative deadlines, public dissatisfaction with Congress, and growing demands for results. Trump positioned himself as both an advisor and a standard-bearer, offering guidance while implicitly setting expectations for loyalty and alignment. The message was unmistakable. Success comes from standing together, standing firm, and standing with him. Trump also framed the broader political struggle in stark terms, portraying the coming months as decisive for the country's future. This framing resonated with his long-standing approach, transforming policy debates into existential choices. By doing so, he reinforced emotional engagement among supporters while challenging Republicans to adopt a more confrontational posture in Congress. As the address concluded, it became clear that this was not an isolated appearance, but part of a larger strategy. Trump's engagement with House Republicans reflects his ongoing effort to shape legislative priorities, influence leadership decisions, and maintain his position at the center of the Republican ecosystem. Whether viewed as strategic leadership or political dominance, his role is undeniable. Of this story reveals a party still orbiting around Trump's influence, drawing energy, direction, and controversy from his presence. As House Republicans move forward, the question is no longer whether Trump remains relevant, but how deeply his vision will continue to define the party's path. Donald Trump's address to House Republicans at the Trump Kennedy Center did not end when he left the stage. Instead, it set off a wave of reactions that revealed the deeper dynamics shaping the Republican Party today. Beneath the applause, photo opportunities, and carefully worded statements lies an ongoing struggle over identity, leadership, and the future direction of the GOP. Within Republican ranks, the response was split, but not evenly. Many lawmakers emerged from the event openly energized. For them, Trump's message of unity and confrontation aligned with their own political instincts and the expectations of their voters. They see Trump as a mobilizing force, capable of turning frustration into turnout and shaping a clear contrast with Democrats. In districts where loyalty to Trump remains strong, his endorsement and approval carry real electoral weight. These supporters emphasize that Trump understands the modern Republican base better than anyone else. His emphasis on economic anxiety, cultural concerns, border security, and distrust of political institutions resonates deeply with voters who feel ignored by Washington. From this perspective, Trump's address was less about the past and more about preparing the party for future battles, both legislative and electoral. However, another group within the House GOP responded more cautiously. These lawmakers recognize Trump's influence but worry about its long-term consequences. They fear the continued reliance on his leadership could alienate moderates, independents, and suburban voters critical to winning general elections. For them, the event reinforced an uncomfortable reality. Distancing from Trump remains politically risky, Yet full alignment carries its own costs. This internal tension is not new, but Trump's appearance made it impossible to ignore. By addressing House Republicans directly, he positioned himself not merely as a former president, but as a central figure in congressional strategy. His message implicitly challenged party leaders to choose clarity over compromise and loyalty over flexibility. That challenge complicates efforts to govern in a divided political environment where narrow margins demand coalition building. Leadership dynamics within the House also came into sharper focus. Trump's influence extends beyond individual lawmakers to the broader structure of Republican leadership. His opinions on committee priorities, legislative tactics, and party discipline carry weight, even when expressed indirectly. This reality limits the autonomy of House leaders who must balance Trump's expectations with institutional responsibilities and legislative realities. Democrats were quick to seize on the moment. Party leaders framed Trump's address as evidence that Republicans remain tethered to a divisive figure, arguing that the GOP is more focused on political theatrics than governance. They pointed to Trump's continued dominance as proof that Republican priorities are shaped by personal loyalty rather than policy solutions. This narrative, Democrats believe, strengthens their case to voters wary of polarization and instability. Media coverage further amplified these contrasts. Some outlets portrayed the event as a demonstration of Trump's enduring power, while others framed it as a sign of stagnation within the GOP. Analysts debated whether Trump's influence represents strength or vulnerability, asking whether the party is building toward the future or reliving past battles. The lack of consensus underscores how polarizing Trump remains, even years after leaving office. Beyond Washington, Trump's address sent signals to donors, activists, and voters. For grassroots supporters, it reinforced the belief that Trump remains the party's true leader, regardless of official titles. For major donors and strategists, it raised strategic questions about messaging, candidate recruitment, and long-term branding. The event clarified that any serious Republican strategy must account for Trump's presence, whether by embracing it or carefully navigating around it. Perhaps most significantly, Trump's remarks reshaped expectations. By urging House Republicans to stay unified and confrontational, he set a benchmark against which their actions will be judged. Compromise may now be framed as weakness, and dissent as disloyalty. This dynamic could make governance more difficult, particularly on issues requiring bipartisan solutions, such as budget negotiations or national security. At the same time, Trump's involvement energizes a segment of the party that thrives on opposition and disruption. For these Republicans, gridlock is not necessarily failure. It is proof of resistance. Trump's rhetoric reinforces that worldview, encouraging lawmakers to prioritize ideological battles over incremental progress. As House Republicans move forward, they face a defining choice. They can continue to operate under Trump's shadow, drawing strength from his base and clarity from his messaging, or they can attempt to broaden their appeal by redefining leadership and tone. Trump's address did not resolve this dilemma, but it sharpened it. Donald Trump's address to House Republicans at the Trump Kennedy Center was not simply a moment of political theater. It was a statement about endurance. Long after leaving the presidency, Trump continues to shape not only Republican messaging, but also its internal power structure, strategic priorities, and sense of identity. Looks beyond the immediate reactions to consider what this moment means for the GOP's long-term future. At its core, Trump's continued presence raises a fundamental question. Can the Republican Party evolve while remaining closely aligned with a single dominant figure? For nearly a decade, Trump has redefined what Republican leadership looks like. Less institutional, more personal, less policy-driven, more narrative-focused. His address reinforced this model, emphasizing loyalty, discipline, and confrontation as the primary tools of political success. Electorally, this strategy has proven powerful but uneven. Trump's ability to mobilize a highly motivated base remains unmatched in modern Republican politics. His endorsements can make or break primary campaigns, and his rhetoric continues to drive turnout among voters who feel disconnected from traditional political institutions. For House Republicans in competitive districts, this energy is both an asset and a challenge. The challenge lies in expansion. While Trump solidifies support among core voters, critics argue that his dominance makes it harder for the GOP to broaden its coalition. Suburban voters, independents, and younger demographics often respond negatively to the tone and intensity that define Trump-era politics. House Republicans must therefore navigate a delicate balance, maintaining Trump's support without alienating voters necessary for long-term governing majorities. Trump's address also highlighted how power now flows within the party. Influence is no longer tied solely to committee assignments or leadership titles. It is tied to visibility, alignment, and public loyalty. This shift has reshaped incentives within Congress. Lawmakers are rewarded not just for legislative achievements, but for their ability to echo Trump's messaging and defend his worldview. Over time, this dynamic risks narrowing internal debate and reducing ideological diversity within the party. From a policy perspective, Trump's influence pushes the GOP toward a more oppositional posture. His emphasis on resistance over compromise resonates with voters frustrated by Washington gridlock, but complicates governance. House Republicans must legislate in an environment where compromise is often portrayed as betrayal. This tension raises questions about how effectively the party can govern if it regains full control of Congress or the White House. Trump's long-term impact also extends to leadership succession. As long as he remains politically active, emerging Republican leaders struggle to define themselves independently. Potential future leaders must either align closely with Trump or risk marginalization. This dynamic delays generational transition and keeps the party anchored to a familiar figure rather than encouraging experimentation or renewal. Internationally, Trump's continued prominence sends mixed signals. Allies and adversaries alike watch not only who holds office, but who shapes political discourse. Trump's confrontational style and skepticism of multilateral institutions contrast sharply with traditional Republican foreign policy. His influence over House Republicans suggests that U.S. policy could again shift dramatically depending on electoral outcomes, adding uncertainty to global relationships. For Trump himself, the address served a strategic purpose. By speaking directly to House Republicans, he reinforced his relevance without holding office. He positioned himself as a guide, a gatekeeper, and a measure of legitimacy within the party. Whether or not he seeks or secures future office, this role allows him to shape outcomes indirectly, through pressure, endorsement, and narrative control. For the Republican Party, the stakes are high. Trump's model delivers intensity, clarity, and loyalty, but it also demands conformity. The party's ability to adapt to changing demographics, economic realities, and voter expectations will determine whether Trump's influence becomes a bridge to future success or a constraint on growth. As House Republicans move forward, they must decide what kind of party they want to be. One defined primarily by opposition and personality, or one capable of translating political energy into sustainable governance. Trump's address did not answer that question, but it made clear that avoiding it is no longer an option. In the end, Trump's appearance at the Trump Kennedy Center was not about the past. It was about control of the present and leverage over the future. Whether the GOP ultimately redefines itself or continues to orbit around Trump's influence will shape not only the party's destiny, but the broader direction of American politics for years to come. The moment unfolding within the Republican Party is bigger than one speech, one event, or one political figure. It is about direction, accountability, and the future of American leadership. As Donald Trump continues to shape the GOP's message and momentum, the choices made now by lawmakers, voters, and party leaders will echo far beyond the next election cycle. This is a time for engagement, not apathy. Follow the policies being debated, not just the personalities dominating the headlines. Ask how leadership decisions affect everyday Americans' jobs, security, freedom, and the strength of democratic institutions. Political influence carries responsibility, and those in power must be challenged to deliver results, not just rhetoric. If you believe the country benefits from strong but principled leadership, make your voice heard. Support transparency, demand accountability, and stay informed about how power is exercised behind closed doors. Democracy does not thrive on loyalty alone. It thrives on participation and scrutiny. The future of the Republican Party and the nation itself will be shaped by those who choose to engage rather than watch from the sidelines. Whether you agree or disagree with Trump's influence, the outcome depends on informed citizens who are willing to think critically, vote thoughtfully, and hold leaders to high standards. Stay involved, stay informed, and remember, political moments like this define eras. What happens next depends on what the public demands now.